Greetings and salutations. I'm here with my review and my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again, Episode 8, the penultimate episode of the season. Full spoilers follow for Episode 8 of Born Again. All right, you're still here. Let's dive in. And this marks us going into the material that is now, as of this episode and in the finale, 100% shot by the new creative team on the show that took over. We are no longer mixing and matching footage that was shot by the first creative team, and it is interesting to see where they come to here. There were some things about this episode that were frustrating me, but then ultimately seemed to be pretty redeemed by the end of it. And first of all, I want to talk about the fact that there was a lot of parallels to the Daredevil Season 3 finale. And I know that sucker aired like 7 years ago, so if you don't remember it, I understand. But in that episode, we had Matt basically purposely sending Bullseye in to a big event, which was Fisk and Vanessa's wedding, where they were dancing together to disrupt it for his own purposes. So it was funny that a lot was similar here as far as Matt being the key to Bullseye breaking out, Bullseye showing up at this event. You know, we've got Wilson and Vanessa once more dancing together, and then here comes Bullseye. It's a little murky exactly what Matt intended or thought was going to happen here. Look, this episode makes sure you remember that he can know when people are lying, so that when Bullseye tells him in jail, I'm telling you the truth. He doesn't tell him whether Fisk hired him or not, but he said, if I'm out of this cell, I'll tell you the truth, which presumably Matt then means to get him broken out, right? He beats him up and makes it and claims Bullseye did it to himself. Look, this means that Matt is definitely responsible for those people being killed when Bullseye broke out. Don't love that, but then again, he did kind of the same thing at the end of Daredevil Season 3, so that's just a big moral area that we have to, I wouldn't say put aside. We have to just kind of think about it when we look at Daredevil in its totality. Will they ever bring that up? I'd love if they would. I don't know if they will, but they never talk. It's not like Matt. It's interesting because Matt figures out on his own that it's Vanessa who hired Bullseye. So a little curious to me there why there's no follow-up on that. He goes there, he figures it out before he even knows Bullseye is there for sure. So I felt like that was a little strange. However, I really like that Vanessa is the one that is behind it all. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense with her path. They kind of throw in this last minute thing that Foggy was working on a big case and that he was killed because of that case. So now we can kind of put these pieces together. This is when Vanessa was in charge. Foggy was killed because of that case. It also helped me a lot because the end of Daredevil Season 3, so not only did Fisk agree not to hurt Foggy and Karen, something that was acknowledged earlier in the season of Born Again, but Bullseye was trying to kill Kingpin. That was the whole thing. I don't know if you remember the character that Bullseye was obsessed with on that show. He was stalking her, but that Fisk killed her. And when Matt let him know that, he went on a warpath. So it didn't make sense to me that he ever would have just taken a job for Fisk. Now we know he didn't. It makes a lot more sense. Yeah, he'd probably take a job from Vanessa, though. She didn't have anything personally to do with that, and these are all terrible people. So yeah, I thought that worked really well there. Matt taking the bullet for Fisk, is interesting, obviously, thematically in the big picture. Again, because it's a little unclear at that point what Matt thought was going to happen with Bullseye when he set up getting him out. But we'll see in the finale. And again, as much as there are parallels to the Daredevil Season 3 finale, unmistakable parallels, I'm glad this was not the finale. So there's still more kind of to see where this plays out with this story. But yeah, all the stuff I think with Vanessa and Fisk really came to a nice head here. She firmly aligned herself with them. I mean, that scene with Adam was interesting. First of all, because Adam was still alive, and he seemed to be doing a lot better than you'd think for the beating that Fisk gave him. I mean, yeah, he seemed like a weakened guy in a cell, but geez, you think he couldn't even sit up after what happened to him. And it was fairly telegraphed that Vanessa was going to kill him in that moment, but it was done in a very effective, jolting manner with the huge gunshot, the kill shot to the head. I liked the darkness of the embrace of Wilson and Vanessa, but they're out of focus and we're focusing in the background on this dead body behind them. And yeah, so all the things, this through line with Vanessa, because it was so interesting at the end of Daredevil Season 3 that she was fully on board, that now that she knew everything and that she, she was calling for hits, she was like, all right, I embrace this crime boss life too. So here they truly feel, they come into this party together, and he's back in his kingpin white suit, she's in the red, and they really feel like, these crime bosses together, fully formed in a way maybe we haven't completely seen throughout this series, since they were having such issues with each other. I also liked what happened with BB in this episode, because like a lot of the sort of supporting, not peripheral, but the supporting cast on this show, I felt like she was not very well fleshed out till now, and it was driving me a little crazy with her and Daniel, how she kind of seemed like a chump with him, because he had threatened her so clearly, and here he's apologetic, but then she's like, all right, let's do shots. And they really, almost immediately after explain that. And it turns out there's kind of a long con going on here, because she is trying to get the guy who killed her uncle, the fact that Fisk killed Ben Urich in season 1 of Daredevil, so that happened a decade ago. I like that a lot, because at least it finally contextualizes her more. It makes her sort of strange, ambiguous nature at least coalesce, and we understand that this was a long-term revenge plot she's got going on. And I like that she's kind of finds an ally in the commissioner, who is so ineffectual right now. He can't control this task force at all. So that feels like these two characters that have been existing on the periphery, now that maybe they can sort of join forces. And I don't think this would be something that maybe, now it seems like this can't be resolved in the finale. Maybe it can, but because they're going right into season 2, and they're even calling season 2 sort of just the second half of the story. Once upon a time, this was going to be one single season, all these episodes. That makes a lot of sense. I think that we're going to, hopefully we're going to have things feel like an appropriate place to end in the finale, but it feels like a lot is going to be in play. Fisk is not going to, I think, stop being mayor at the end of the season, but maybe the task force is going to be, if not destroyed, taken down a peg. We got the return here of Tony Dalton as Jack from Hawkeye, and yes, he is swordsman, not that that is a shock, but we saw that Kingpin blackmailed him with that to get what he needs for this Red Hook project, and that basically at this event he was taking all of the rich and powerful people, and he had used his his crime connections to find out things he could use to leverage all of them. They all were looking frightened, shattered, messed up. It would be a shame if we never get Tony Dalton, actually in like a fight scene. We got that one little video the guy was showing BB. Maybe if not this season, maybe he can come back next season. We can actually see swordsman in action here. I like the idea that he's, a rich superhero, which obviously from Iron Man to Batman we've seen many of, but he's sort of maybe a little more blasé. The sort of his form of just like, yeah, I'll go out. Maybe it's like a lark, which kind of it fits with what we saw of him in Hawkeye. I mentioned BB. I'll circle back also to what was going on with Daniel in this episode, because I think he's been one of the better new supporting characters, and the fact that he's so ambitious and so just willing to do anything. And now Fisk makes him a deputy mayor, which Sheila is noting he's way too young and green for, but that doesn't matter because Fisk realizes he'll do what I say. And yeah, he's kind of just this slimeball, this opportunist, and that makes it a little more satisfying that BB is not being so manipulated by him, that she's not just his drinking buddy who sometimes he can give intel to but really control. However, I do want to mention the whole who is behind stopping Muse thing, because we talk about in this episode the fact that BB has put out these stories that are false, because just to kind of protect herself, we now realize, and keep her in with Daniel. But again, there's this argument between Heather and Matt at the beginning of the episode, and it turns out she's pretty anti-Daredevil. She doesn't see Daredevil as her savior. She just kind of sees him maybe as the lesser evil between him and Muse, which didn't help to make her a very likable character. But also, wouldn't she see the stories out there that are saying that Daredevil had nothing to do with this and that it was just the task force? And at least you'd think she'd want to correct that and know that maybe there's something bad. She seems so, disbelieving when Matt is trying to warn her about Fisk. But wouldn't she, as an intelligent character, just realize, well, something's going on, because why is there this lie about how I was saved that completely omits Daredevil from even being part of it? I didn't really buy into that, and as someone who has already struggled with the Heather-Matt dynamic, this is not making me root for them to work things out. But yeah, I also have this feeling the relationship is not long for this world. We'll see how that plays out in the finale. I wanted to mention again on the directing side, really loved there was like this tracking shot that followed from BB to Daniel and their conversation ending. And then we veered over and we went to Jack talking to, I think her name was Artemis. She was one of the rich people we saw in the earlier episode that Fisk hates. And now we saw that she was very shaken. They have their conversation. Then we pan over to Heather. Thought that was like just a cool little directorial touch. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. It's been weird because I haven't been able to really properly praise them through this season because I don't know exactly what they shot and what they didn't, especially because they kept the original director's credits, which I think is commendable. But now we know it's 100% all them. We know that this is their directorial choices. I thought that was a great shot in an episode that had a lot of nice little stylistic touches here. The fact that Matt gets so injured, I mean, he's shot. Will he get back in the Daredevil costume in the finale? He has to, right? That would seem like a weird cheat. So will there be a little time jump, or will he just, be stubborn Matt and run around in that costume with a bullet injury? I'm guessing probably the latter. Hopefully he's got some Punisher alongside him for that. So, yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of exciting stuff going on here. Some of it's a little messy still. And some things don't quite coalesce as well as I'd like them to with, the specifics of everything with Bullseye. But, yeah, I really like what they've done with Vanessa here and her focus and where will this land with her and Wilson. Is this heading towards a tragic ending for her that will actually just make things worse as far as Wilson will probably really lose it? He just had an assassination attempt, which of course I'm guessing he will be leveraging into his own increased popularity. And so will she just kind of stay by his side with that, or now will Bullseye sort of turn his attention to her? Again, mentioning why was Bullseye trying to kill Fisk? Well, now he's had two reasons. I mean, we saw in this episode, Fisk was putting him into Gen Pop to take him out. But again, if you go back to Daredevil season 3, he already wanted to kill him. I like that because they don't need to explicitly mention all of these things. I just don't want them to be contradicted. And I was a little worried they were going to contradict it here if it turned out that he had actually taken a job from Fisk. It turned out he didn't. It was from Vanessa. So that all works. I'm sure it's very tricky, not only years apart with completely different creative teams to keep this all working, but they clearly have watched those old episodes. And so far, it's mostly played out pretty well. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again, Episode 8. What'd you think? What are you hoping to see in the finale? Let me know in the comments. If you could like, if you could subscribe, that'd be great too. All right, take care. Bye.